Hey everybody, my name is Rodney. I am one of the counselors at Pineview Homes in Everett, Michigan. This is session 1 of a parenting class. I have a class with me here in front of me that you can't see, and also on the YouTube there if you want to follow along. We just go through some basics for parenting. Our main curriculum is free and downloadable. It's not original to us, but it's what we use. It's called Adventures in Parenting, and it's endorsed by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the National Institute of Health. So that's the primary curriculum we use, and obviously I swing it to my style. So to get started, I have a little video. We're going to talk about the 4 primary styles of parenting. So the class here and those that are watching, there's a video for you to watch, and then we'll get started with the lecture.
Welcome to Mr. Brain. Parenting is a wonderful journey, but let's face it, it can be challenging too. That's why we're here to help. Our parenting series is your ultimate guide to becoming an extraordinary parent. In the realm of child psychology, researchers like Diana Baumrind dedicated their lives to understanding the effects of different parenting styles. Through their meticulous research, they unraveled 4 distinct styles: authoritarian, permissive, authoritative, and uninvolved. Let's explore each one and discover their implications for our children's development. 1. Authoritarian parenting. Imagine the Smiths, a family with strict rules and high expectations. Mr. Smith believes in complete obedience from his children, Emily and Jacob. In their household, discipline is paramount. However, their parenting approach can be characterized as authoritarian. Mr. and Mrs. Smith's parenting style is marked by a desire for control and adherence to rules without much room for flexibility. For instance, Emily is passionate about painting and dreams of becoming an artist. However, her father disapproves of her creative pursuits, considering them a waste of time. He insists that she focuses solely on academic excellence. As a result, Emily feels stifled and discouraged from pursuing her true passion. The authoritarian parenting style, while seeking obedience and discipline, often sacrifices the child's autonomy and stifles their individuality. In the future, children raised under authoritarian parenting may struggle with making decisions, lack confidence in themselves, and find it hard to express their thoughts and feelings. 2. Permissive parenting. Now let's meet the Johnsons, a family that practices permissive parenting. Their household is filled with love, but rules and boundaries are scarce. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson shower their children, Lily and Ethan, with affection, allowing them to do as they please without much guidance or structure. For example, Lily wants to go out with friends late at night, even on school nights. Her parents rarely say no and often give in to her desires. While this permissive approach fosters a sense of freedom and flexibility, it can lead to challenges in self-discipline and respecting authority figures. Lily struggles to understand boundaries and lacks the guidance necessary to make responsible decisions. In the future, children raised under permissive parenting may have trouble controlling their impulses, struggle with authority figures, and find it challenging to set and achieve goals. Without proper structure and guidance, they may face difficulties as they grow up. 3. Authoritative parenting. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the Parkers, a family that embraces the authoritative parenting style. Mr. and Mrs. Parker understand the importance of balance. They create a nurturing environment while setting clear expectations and boundaries for their children, Mia and Noah. For instance, when Noah faces a disagreement with his friend, Mrs. Parker sits down with him, encouraging him to express his feelings and find a solution together. She values Mia's opinions and encourages open communication. Noah feels heard and respected, fostering a strong bond between parent and child. The Parkers' authoritative style provides structure, support, and guidance while nurturing their children's independence and individuality. 4. Uninvolved parenting. Lastly, let's step into the Wilsons' home, where uninvolved parenting takes hold. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson are busy professionals and neglect their children's needs. Sarah and Daniel are left to fend for themselves, lacking guidance, emotional support, and a sense of security. For instance, Alex participates in a school cycle race, but his parents fail to attend or show support. They are too consumed with their own work commitments to prioritize their interests and achievements. Alex feels neglected and unimportant, as if his passions and accomplishments go unnoticed. This uninvolved parenting style often leads to low self-esteem, emotional instability, and challenges in building meaningful connections. Understanding these parenting styles empowers us to make informed choices and create nurturing environments that best suit our children's needs according to time and situation. Join us on the journey of understanding your child's mind and becoming a better parent. Like and subscribe to stay updated.
All right. I thought that was just a good little snapshot of the 4 primary parenting styles. But the first thing that we need to really understand, and so Chris, on the top of your page there, in big letters, write, there is no perfect parent. There is no perfect parent. It doesn't matter how much we try, how much effort we put in. We're gonna make mistakes. It just happens. The most ideal parent, we're fallen, we're fallible, we make mistakes, we're gonna mess up. And it's more or less what we do with those mistakes, because our kids are watching us like sponges. So not only are they listening to what we hope they're listening to what we say. So not only are we want them to listen to what we say, but more than that, they're watching what we do. They're watching how we react and respond to stuff. It's astounding. And there's been study after study done of the impact of parents on kids. And think about like the impact that our parents had on us, good or bad. Even if typically and sometimes in the world, there's a lot of kids that grow up like without a dad or a detached dad. Even if a dad is absent, that absence has this crazy effect on the kids. It's amazing the influence. It's a little scary, the influence that biological parents have on children. There are alternatives to even biological parents, and we see that like in our field of work, adoptive parents, foster parents, that sort of thing, which kids can go to really good homes for foster parents or programs or adoptive parents or whatever, but there's always going to be this thing inside of this, maybe this emptiness or a wound or whatever you want to call it, to where even if the biological parent dies, passes, they still will question, why did they leave me? So it's just daunting. It's just daunting, the influence that biological parents do have on kids, whether they're there or not. Which is a little scary, but at the same time, it should, as parents, it should make us say, well, I need to do my absolute best then for my kid. Not that I'm gonna do it all right, but I need to make real efforts to be that mom or be that dad that they deserve. Maybe that's a good way to say it. But the first thing that we do need to know, and what I asked you to write on your paper, is there is no perfect parent. It doesn't exist. Not in this world anyway. There is no perfect parent. At the same time, if something isn't perfect, that doesn't mean it can't get better. It doesn't mean we can't learn and do better. It doesn't matter what spectrum you're on, as far as if you were to rate yourself, as how good of a parent you are. If you feel that you're at a 2, well, we can get you to a 2.5 or a 3. If you feel you're at an 8, I've had some parents, I've had some guardians, I had a mom once. It drove me crazy. So, biological mom, her kid's in placement. Literally the first thing out of her mouth when she came to counsel with me for family counseling was, just to start off, I want you to know I'm a good mom and there's nothing I need to change. And I'm like, oh and her son's in placement, right. Now he made some choices on his own, right. But that was her perspective. That was 100% not me. I'm not the problem. Well, what's the famous phrase? It takes two to tango, you know. So that told me straight away, okay, this is what I'm dealing with, right? So in order for someone to be found, they first need to realize they're lost, right? Or to some degree, right? But if you come in and clearly the world or people are telling you, like if I'm working on something, not even parenting, I don't care what it is, life in general, and I think I got it all together, well, I'm unteachable at that moment. I got it all together, and the entire world could be saying, "Whoa, Rodney, you're not doing that right," or "Have you thought about this?" or "Yeah, you're doing okay, but there's this thing that," and if I come in just, I got nothing to change. Okay. Thankfully, that mom she came around, you know, and you just have to know how to ask the right questions. One of my counseling professors, it was a phenomenal way of saying it. This was years ago, 15 years ago. He said, an effective counselor, now I'm going to mess it up. It was so profound that I forgot it. He said, you want those that you talk to lead you where you want them to go, if that makes sense. And so you do that by navigating questions and going to the end of their logic or their thinking, you know. And so, like a logical question, like you just did it. I have nothing to change. I'm a good mom. It's 100% not me, okay? And then you logically said, okay, but your son's in placement. There's obviously some disconnect there. And to even go a little further, he had some pretty strong animosity towards her specifically. There's a breakdown in relationship there. Anyway, okay, there is no perfect parent. It doesn't matter how good you are or how good you think you are. There is no perfect parent. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. I'm teaching a parenting class. I absolutely was not a perfect parent. There are things I look back on my parenting from when they were babies all the way through. Now my kids are grown until, well, my one son is an adult and my daughter's almost going to be an adult. So I'm kind of done as far as raising children. I'm always going to be a dad, always be a parent. But I look back over when they were babies on through into, you know, they were toddlers, into when they were the grade school age, you know, early adolescents, teenagers, whatever. I made a number of mistakes in every phase of their life. Now, thankfully, I didn't completely damage them, you know, but there was some damage. I remember I went to a parenting conference once, and the teacher, the presenter, the first thing he said was, because there was a room full of parents, you know, that wanted to learn how to better parent their kids. And he says, let me take a guess. He goes, I'm guessing most of you came to this conference because you want to learn how not to damage your kids. Okay, fair. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to damage my kids, because my kids, they were very little at the time. I don't want to damage them, you know, I'm kind of this new dad, and you know, and I want them to do well. And he says, well, if you're breathing and you already have children, you've already damaged them. And I'm like, no. So his point was, it doesn't matter how we were raised or how much we're going to make mistakes. We're going to damage our kids in one way or another. It's just inevitable. It's not so much if they get damaged, it's if we make efforts to correct that pattern of behavior and allow them to see us learning through the process. That's really kind of a better way to look at it. But when he said that, he said, too late. You know, I almost like emotionally, I dropped to my knees, like, why am I here? You know, but it was really good. It was really good. But I remember him saying that guy. Okay. All right. So what I want to do today is first thing, just know that there is no perfect parent. Then I want to go through the 4 main parenting styles. We'll go through them. I'll kind of explain them a little bit. You saw the video. And then what we'll do is we'll talk about it. what you're gonna find is as we go through these, you're gonna see kind of flavors of yourself, or maybe dad. You're gonna kind of relate that to dad as well. And you're gonna almost categorize naturally yourself or dad. But you also, what I'd like you to do too is think about your own parents, how you were raised as well, because that will also affect how you parent. It'll either be, I don't want to get ahead of myself, it'll either be very similar, or because of maybe pain or something, it'll be an attempt to be the exact opposite, which isn't always a bad thing, but if it's swung too far, it can be a bad thing, but we'll talk about that. All right, the first one is authoritarian parent style. The authoritarian parenting style. Have you ever seen Sound of Music? You remember that old movie, Sound of Music?
Yeah.
The hills are alive with sun. Who was the lady that was? Is that Julie Andrews? Is that who that is? That's an old movie. Anyway, I remember watching The Sound of Music, and I remember the dad. When was the last time you saw Sound of Music? It's been a long time.
Yeah. Probably when I was a kid with my grandma.
Right.
Yeah.
I used to sing Edelweiss to my daughter to put her to sleep. It's the Austrian national anthem, but it's a beautiful song. Anyway, they sing it a couple times in Sound of Music. Anyway, the dad in Sound of Music, he is definitely authoritarian. He's a military man, and he runs his house like he runs his ship, basically. He even has a whistle, and each kid, he's got, I don't remember how many it was, it's 8, 10 kids, whatever. And each kid had their own whistle tone. And so he would blow this whistle, and they would come marching down the hall, marching down the steps, and they all like a military, what's the right word, brigade? I don't even know what the right word is. But he ran his household like he ran his military ships. It's a really good example of an authoritarian. It's my way or the highway. These are the rules. I may explain the rules once, and if you don't get it, that's on you. And so no, I'm glad you're right. So the number one there is authoritarian. That's what the 1 through 4 is there. Authoritarian parenting style. It may kind of keep the peace, so to speak, but it's definitely going to be dependent on that strong personality, on the dad or the mom or the grandma. It's not always men. Right now, recently, I was counseling with a boy and his grandmother, and the grandmother is the placement. Mom and dad, they're out of the picture. So grandmother is the placement for the boy. She is definitely, we would almost call it old school now. That's kind of the new phrase, but that is authoritarian. It is, these are the rules. These are my expectations. My way or the highway. There's no debate. There's no discussion. You just do it or you get out. I mean, that's kind of the mentality. Well, she got better over time, kind of doing some parenting. She didn't take my parenting class, but I did bring some parenting skills into discussing with her and stuff. And it was neat to see her kind of open her eyes a little bit to even a 13 or 14-year-old. They still have a voice. They still have thoughts. They're not, it's a little different when a kid is 2, right? I mean, don't do that. I'm gonna move you away from that dangerous thing. I mean, you can be a little more authoritarian, like with a 2-year-old, but when they're 13, 14, 15, I mean, they're developing, their brains are developing, they're becoming their own person, their own identities are developing. They question things. They're beginning to think more abstractly. To where authoritarian for an adolescent or teenager, they may obey, but as soon as that strong figure is removed or goes for a walk, what's the phrase, when the cat's away, the mice will play. So when the authoritarian is physically there, or what's the right word? The influence of the authoritarian is there, the house might function okay, but on the externals, it may function okay. So if you're visiting, say you're a visitor into the authoritarian home, you may go into that authoritarian home, and you may actually say, "Oh, this house is really run well. Like, things are going to be relatively neat. You know, there's not going to be big messes all over the place. Dinner would be on time. Kids' rooms would be decent. I mean, it would appear to be functioning, but yes, it may be functioning on the externals in a somewhat, more ordered way, but oftentimes it's at the cost of the kids. I mean, I don't want to overstate it, but at the cost of the kids' souls. And I don't mean to overstate it, but a kid, especially an adolescent, in an authoritarian type environment, they're just trying to get through. And as soon as they can get through, they're gone. It's almost like, lockdown placement. It's like, lockup. That's definitely an authoritarian environment. I mean, my way or the highway, you have to do this. You have to get up when we tell you to get up, go to bed when we tell you to go to bed, eat when we tell you to eat, dress the way we tell you to. You're just a number. And an authoritarian household, it can kind of feel, again, I'm not trying to overstate it, but I'm just trying to make a point. It can feel like a prison. And what do you want to do in a prison? Get out, right? So that is for example, a lockdown placement, a jail, so to speak. Is it usually pretty well organized? Yeah, but there's no individuality, there's no freedom. And so authoritarian, it's almost like the kid has no personality. They're just someone else to take care of, to feed, to get them out and get them through. All right, good enough. That's it for authoritarian. My way or the highway is the idea with them, and the kids are their personalities, their emotions, their thoughts. They can't ask why. The classic response for an authoritarian is, because I said so, right? And sometimes I've been guilty of that myself because I don't want to explain. I'm the adult, I know better, well, why do I have to eat my vegetables and not 5 donuts? Well, okay, instead of, just for right now, just because I said so, but that is still an authoritarian flavor because I said so. Anyway, the result of kids that happens in an authoritarian household is they, I skipped, I'm sorry. Children of authoritarian parents, they're at a higher risk of developing self-esteem problems. And the reason that they have a hard time developing self-esteem, a good self-esteem, is because they've never been heard anyway. They basically say, my voice doesn't matter. And so then when they become adults, late teens, into their early 20s, they go to a job interview, whatever, and a boss who's an authoritative position, if the boss asks them, hey, what do you think about this? They don't know how to handle that because their whole lives, they didn't have a voice. They feel more comfortable with the boss. Just tell me what to do, right? I've been a prisoner. I've been a slave emotionally my whole life. So now when a boss who maybe isn't an authoritarian, maybe he is authoritative, and we'll get into that in a minute, asks their opinion on something, they don't know how to handle that. They look at themselves as low self-esteem. I don't have a voice because I've just been told what to do my whole life. They don't know how to function. All right, good enough. That's good enough on that one. All right, I'll save the best one for last. The second one we're going to talk about is permissive parenting. Permissive parenting is basically, and this may come from an authoritarian, the parents may have grown up in authoritarian parenting style. They basically almost don't have real rules. They may say there's rules, don't do this, don't do that, but there's really no follow through. There's no consequences. They may threaten a lot even. They may threaten, hey, if you do this, you're not going to have dinner, or you're not going to have your video games or whatever. Well, then the kid will whine and cry or fight back, and they don't want to deal with it. It's like a low energy. Well, it'd be high energy in the beginning, but then they give in real quick is basically kind of the permissive kind of parenting style. they give in too quickly. They don't give those consequences. So before I had kids, I think I was married. Before I had kids, I was in a Subway, and this is one of my favorite stories to tell because it's insane. Subway sandwiches, right? Where I'm in Subway, and I'm there, and I go in, and I already hear the noise. Like, what's going on? And I kid you not, there were the line to get your sandwiches was here, and they have the booth tables, line. Well, there was nobody sitting in that line of booth tables along the wall, but there are these kids, 5, 6 years old, so not babies, like 5 or 6 years old, literally running from top of the table to top of the table, like jumping over the booths, boom, bada boom, 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 bada boom, boom, going back, and they were just, I was like, where am I? I'm in the Twilight Zone. What's happening? I'm young. I'm in my early 20s, and I'm like, that is crazy. And the mom, I think it was the mom. The mom was in line to get sandwiches, and she kept like hollering at him, barking at him from line across the restaurant. And I remember what she said. I was kind of right behind her, and I remember she said, "If you don't stop that, you're not going to get any sandwiches, or you're not going to get any subs." And the kids, I remember, looked at her, and then just continued to jump from table to table. And what she did was, "I'll have 3 kids' meals," And so she goes, "If you don't stop that, you're not gonna get anything to eat. You're not gonna get any subs from Subway." They're in Subway. The kids paused for half a second, then continued, and she turns around, "I'll have 3 kids." So she taught the kids a couple things in that. She taught the kids that, 1, her words mean nothing. Just flat out have no power. They mean nothing. She gave a empty threat and then proved it was empty by immediately ordering them their kids' meals. She didn't move over to them. She didn't grab them. She didn't sit them down. She just empty threat, empty threat, empty threat, empty threat, and then still gave them what they wanted. That's a good example of a permissive parent. And the permissive parent in that situation literally taught her kids that maybe there's a dislike in what they're doing, but it's not enough to stop the behavior. So basically what that taught them is they had permission to do what they wanted to do, probably up to a certain level. Because most likely, I would assume at home, that mom would be like, "I need you to come over here. I need you to come over here. I need you to come over here. I need you to come over here." And the 6th time she blows up, and now the kid's like, "Oh, we better go see what mom wants." So she's teaching them that her words have no value until she blows up. And then when she blows up, then all of a sudden the kids are like, "Oh, now I need to react." Honestly, I used to do the same thing to my mom. And I wonder if my mom is gonna watch this video. She probably will. Growing up, we lived in this little village, kind of little town, but it wasn't in town, and there was lots of woods around us, so it was kind of country-esque, but the houses were a little kind of close together, and there was this patch of woods that me and my best friend and his cousins, and we ruled those woods. We built forts out there. We had stick wars. I mean, that was our world, was out in the woods. We'd come back dirty, bloody, and sappy from the pine trees. That's just how I grew up. Before the internet, right? So, which is the way I wish kids grew up a little more today. So, anyway, so what I would do though is, I'd be out in the woods, which was just close enough to the house for hollering distance. Like, I could hear when mom would holler. And so I'd be playing out there, whatever, and I'd hear "Rod," and I'd listen. And you know what I was listening for? It wasn't her words, it was her tone. That's what I was listening for. "Rod." Okay, she's on a low level, I don't need to come. I don't need to obey. I'm having fun with my friends and the cousins. I'm playing. "Rod." Okay, now it's a little elevated, but I still don't have to obey. It's not to the Rod! Okay, guys, I gotta go home. And then, of course, I use the excuse of, oh, I didn't hear you. I was out in the woods. No, I heard her the first time. Then my dad actually made my mom one of those dinner bells, you know, those triangle dinner bell things. So then there's this no yelling and no, because that thing was loud, and no yelling, and I couldn't say I didn't hear it. So she'd just go out there, and well, a lot of times it's literally dinner time, and she'd bling-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding, she'd clang the thing. Okay, then I learned that I had to. Now, if I heard my dad holler for me, I got going, because it was usually mom, mom, mom. If I still didn't obey, then dad stepped in. Okay, now I need to obey. Because, I mean, just the reality of it is, growing up, I believed as a child that my dad's words had more value than my mom's words. It took 3 times for the message to come across to where I reacted. For dad, it was 1 time, for example. So I'm not saying that mom was permissive. That's not what it is. But that was a little flavor of permissive parents. It's like they assume, and maybe it's how they were brought up, they assume that their kids are not going to listen the first time. It's like an assumption made. And so what they'll do is they assume already, I'm going to have to repeat myself, and then I'll get a reaction, to where really that is a, it can, detrimental is too strong of a word. Well, it can be detrimental. Let me tell you a story about missionary school. So in missionary school, they literally will teach you how to live in the jungle. It depends on where you're going. But there's a class that teaches you these family dynamic lessons. And one of those lessons is called first time obedience. First time obedience, when if you're a missionary family and you're going like literally to the jungle, sometimes first time obedience can literally be life or death. So what they would teach us is there's situations, and it's not often, but it can happen. There's situations where your kids need to obey you the first time, otherwise they could really get hurt or even die. And you can even imagine. So a 5-year-old's running around and it's jungle time, you know, and there's animals that we don't have here that there's over there. Just imagine like a poisonous snake, you know, maybe coming down a tree, and your 5-year-old is playing down on that tree and the kid doesn't see the snake. You see the snake, little Bobby or whatever, come over to me. You need to come over to me. And if the kid, oh, I don't need to listen to you the first time, snake gets closer. I don't need to listen to you the second time, snake gets even closer. And the third time, it might be too late. That snake may bite. So the idea was that first time obedience needed to start to be instilled in children before you went on to the jungle field, so to speak. Because if they weren't taught that, come away from that river, it could be piranhas or even an alligator, or there's a nasty, you know, hornet's nest over there. Come over here, or don't go over there, go over there. And if it's not first time obedience, they could really get hurt. So what I did with that class is I simply took that concept and I thought, well, why should my words be less value here and more value there? So I just took the concept and I applied it to here. And so I don't want to say I was authoritarian like the guy from The Sound of Music. I didn't have a whistle for my kids. But when I said something, when I gave a directive, when I told them to do something, not to do something, to come here, to go there, whatever, and especially depending on their age, right? I mean, when they're little, it's a little more concrete. But I expected the first time to be enough. And if they went a second time, that means the first time they were making a choice, maybe a limited choice depending on their age, but they were making a choice not to obey. So really that was disobedience if they didn't listen to me or mom the first time. So anyway, that would be the opposite of a permissive parent. A permissive parent would repeat themselves, their words don't really have value, they may threaten consequences, but they won't follow through, which only teaches the kids, I don't have to listen to mom. I know she may threaten to take my game system away, but is she really? Or if I pitch enough of a fit, she'll give in. So that's what a permissive parent is. All right, good enough. Do you have any questions or anything? Anything? You're welcome to stop me anytime.
Okay.
I'm doing my coffee. That's a more important thing. All right. The third one we're going to look at is called uninvolved. Oh, let me tell you what permissive kids, what happens with them. Statistically, kids with permissive parents are actually most likely to struggle academically. It's because there's too many options for them. Instead of one way or nothing like an authoritarian, permissive parents teach there's too many options, and they're forced to navigate. It's like the difference between stuck in a cage with nowhere to go, that'd be authoritarian, versus being lost in a desert. That's permissive. Too many, I don't know where to go. Too many options. So they struggle academically because when you're being instructed into something that may be factual, it's like, well, I hear what you're saying and I see this, but there can't just be one answer, or my opinion or how I figure it out, that's just as valid as the doctorate professor. You know what I mean? And so that's why a lot of times kids with permissive parents will struggle academically, because in the academia, it's more concrete. It's like, these are math is a good example. 2 + 2 is always 4. It's what it is. And when you try to give a kid lost in the desert, so to speak, one lane to land on, they haven't done that their whole lives, and they will struggle with that. So that's why they would struggle academically. Okay. Uninvolved parenting. This can be literal, like the mom or dad can be literally gone physically, or have very limited interaction with the kids. Or they can be what's called detached. Detached is where a parent is maybe physically there, but they're not there emotionally. That would be like the stoic dad. Kid comes home from school, dad's sitting in the lazy boy in the recliner, dad's watching the game or watching TV or whatever. You know, hey dad, look at my grade I got, look at my spelling bee or whatever it is. And the dad's like, and he just continues watching TV. Eye contact would be limited with a detached parent. They would rarely go to sporting events. They would rarely be encouraging to their kids. Love and affection would be limited with an uninvolved parent. They just don't have a lot of interest in their kids, just frankly, to be honest. They don't know who their kids' friends are. They can't name their friends, the kids' friends. They have no clue how they're doing in school. And I'm swinging the pendulum on the far, right? I mean, there's balance, but that would be the extreme examples. I talked to one parent one time, and they were getting back involved, which was good. And they had been out of the kid's life for a long time, and now they've been attempting to get back involved with the kid. They didn't know what grade their kid was in. That's a good example of an uninvolved. Now they're becoming more involved, so kudos to them. But in the moment, they were definitely the uninvolved parent. They didn't know what grade the kid was in, let alone their teachers or anything like that. You just don't know your kid. That's an uninvolved parent. Sometimes it happens because, just frankly, because the parents are lazy. That's a factor. Or it could be the parents are so dang busy with other stuff that the kids just go to the wayside. When parents are like super involved in a career, or unfortunately if they're super involved in their own desires, like maybe a substance abuse problem, or just what they want to do, hobbies or whatever it is, they can become uninvolved. And I've seen this more in men, in dads. I've seen dads be like, well, I'm home, right? Well, you might be out in the garage, right? I know a dad that he is home, and how dinner goes for this family is the family literally is sitting at the table. Mom's trying. She is really trying. So she's there. She makes the dinner. The kids are eating. Dad will come in. He will get his food, and he will take that plate of food back out to the garage, and he'll work on whatever project he's working on while he eats out in the garage. That is definitely an uninvolved parent. Which, gosh, you know, I mean, it's hard to say which style or whatever is more detrimental, but that's a biggie. That's a biggie for an uninvolved parent, and it is more common in men. It is to have the uninvolved parenting style. The uninvolved parenting style typically will lead to, similar to the authoritarian, will lead to self-esteem issues. And it's basically this: if dad didn't love me, why will anyone else? If mom didn't love me, why will anyone else? I'm not worth love. There's a deep-rooted longing in every single person, and it's two sides of the same coin: to love and to be loved. That really is our goal in life, in every form or fashion. Our job, our relationships, I mean, is to love and to be loved. And our biological parents have such a core connection to that longing. When that is damaged, you'll probably carry it the rest of your life, depending on the severity of the damage, basically. And for me, and I don't know, I mean, it's hard to say, but for me, depending on your situation, I think the uninvolved, especially if it's detachment, if they're there but not there, gosh, I think that may be some of the most damaging. I mean, if I had to put it on a scale, I mean, it wouldn't be much above others, but that one is way up there. Because the kid is there. Dad, I'm right here, right? Or mom, I am physically right here. There's no excuse. You know, you're not on a business trip. You're not, you know, in another state. Because I do get that too. I hear that. I said, well, you know, mom can't be with me because she's in Kentucky. Or dad can't do this because he's in California or whatever. But when you're physically in the house and you're still rejected, I think that's pretty damaging. So that uninvolved parent is just that, they're uninvolved. They don't see their kids as worthwhile their time, which is it's a sad story. So kids will struggle with self-esteem issues because if mom and dad didn't love them, maybe I'm unlovable. That's basically where they'll go, which is a sad deal. Okay. The good one. This is the authoritative parent, not to be confused with authoritarian. Authoritarian is my way or the highway. Authoritative is basically you saying, I still retain authority. I'm still the king or queen of the house. If I'm mom, I'm the queen of my castle. If I'm dad, I'm the king of my castle. And my kids are welcomed members into that kingdom. Is a good way to say it. And welcomed is the key word. Authoritarian would say, you may be members of my kingdom, but you better toe the mark. You better do what you're supposed to do. You better do your job, basically. Sometimes the job is to be silent and seen, not heard, right? Seen, not heard? Yeah. Uninvolved, they don't care if you're in the kingdom or not. They're, okay, well, I guess I have to pay for your meals. I mean, I just don't give a rip. Permissive is basically, can't we all just get along? There is no king, there is no kingdom. It's just we're all equal. Everyone's rules are valid, even if they cross boundaries. And don't cross my boundaries because I might holler, but there's really no consequences. So it's a mess. The permissive kingdom is a mess. The authoritative is basically, if you can imagine, a well-run kingdom, I guess is a good way to say it, with a hierarchy of authority. Mom and dad, or mom or dad, or whoever is the primary placement caregiver, whoever that is, guardian, whatever. It could be grandma, like the situation I gave you earlier. Whoever is the homeowner, whatever you want to say, they are the top authority. And then you have, if there's a spouse involved, they would be equal authority, in different style, but they'd be equal. And then kids would come underneath that authority structure. There are rules, there are boundaries, but the difference between authoritative and authoritarian is two things. The kids clearly know what the rules are and why. That is a big deal. Krista, do you ever have your kids say why?
Willie says why all the time. I
That-
don't know if you noticed.
Right.
That says why, you have to tell me why.
Sure. And when our kids speak, that is like a window into their soul. There's a reason why they want to know. Even when they're little, they may have done it less, but as our kids grow into that adolescent age, their minds are developing, they're thinking more abstractly. It may have been when you're little kids, well, that's just the rule of the house, so that's what I do. Now as they grow older, well, now they're questioning, okay, well, I know we do that, I'm gonna do that, but why do we do that? And this family over here that I had an overnight with or whatever, they don't do that. So why do we do that and they don't, or vice versa, or whatever? So that's a big difference, is the authoritative family, the authoritative parent, clearly defines the rules and boundaries, but also explains why. Now, they may not agree with the why, our kids, and that's where the authority hierarchy would come in. Well, I understand that Billy Bob's family doesn't do that, but in our house, this is what we do, and this is why. So that's number one, when we tell our kids why. Again, they don't have to agree all the time, but at least we give them the opportunity to understand. The second thing that's different about authoritative versus authoritarian is authoritative parents allow their kids to ask. That's another thing. They allow their kids to ask the whys. Now, I don't mean over and over and over to try to manipulate you into saying yes. That's not what that is. That's a manipulation. But a genuine, Mom, why do we do it this way? Because I see Billy's family not doing it that way. We would welcome that question. It wouldn't be just because I said so, or my way or the highway, Now, if they ask 20 times, we may have to say, okay, it's my way, right? But at least they know why. When we accept our kids' questions, what that does, it does a couple things. It gives them a voice. It allows them to realize that their thoughts matter to us, even if we don't agree. That's fine. It's still valid to have a conversation. And so what that'll do is, when they get older, instead of having a low self-esteem, that'll boost their self-esteem. So when that boss says, okay, you need to show up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and the new employee, your kid, when they get older, says, well, why did we show up at 5 o'clock in the morning? Hopefully the good boss would say, well, that's because that's when this happens. And so we have to be here at 5. Oh, okay, I was heard. I was told the rule. I was told why we have the rule. And I was able to get clarification on it. So now then the kid would, or the young adult this time, then they could decide, okay, well, based on all the information, now I'm going to respond to that either by participating or not. But at least I know why I'm participating or not, or why they do it that way. So that is the authoritative mindset, which obviously is the most productive when it comes to our kids. It says this is all founded by research and whatnot. It says that researchers have found kids with authoritative parents are most likely to become responsible adults who feel comfortable self-advocating and expressing their opinions and feelings. So the word there is the authoritative parent basically makes them feel safe in the world. That's really a good way to say it. The authoritarian would not make them feel safe in the world because they would always be looking for a taskmaster, if that makes sense. If it's not dad, for example, well, it better be a boss. Just tell me what to do. I'm always going to be in this subservient, really slave mentality because the world's not safe. So I need someone to tell me what to do because I can't think for myself. That's basically what that is. The permissive, they're going to say basically, there's too many options. I get lost. I don't know what to do, which actually it's funny. Depression actually comes from not lack of options in life. It's too many options and not knowing the way to go, because that brings anxiety. It's not so much having to do something we don't want to do. It's not knowing what to do. That's what brings anxiety. And anxiety, unresolved, always brings depression. That's where depression comes from. So if you have anxiety over something, it's probably not because you don't know what to do. It's probably because you don't know what to do. And then the added anxiety of, I don't know what the result's gonna be. Either way, it's too many options. Either I don't know what to do, or if I make this move, there's 10 things that could happen. And the pessimist would say, and they're all bad, right? So that's where anxiety typically comes from. And anxiety, unresolved, leads to depression almost every time. So that's where the kid would end up with the permissive parent. Uninvolved, I would almost argue is the worst, because that questions their innermost value. That's where that one really hits home. It's not so much I don't know what to do or I know what to do. It's not so much I have too few options or too many options. It's I'm not even worthy to make the decision. I'm not valuable enough to have any kind of real impact on this world. Oof, gosh. Yeah, that one's tough. That one's a tough one. Yeah. Okay, those are the 4 different parenting styles. I don't want to spend too much more time, but I will ask you, do you want me to turn this off for the conversation part? Okay, yeah, no problem. So that is the 4 parenting styles, which was authoritarian, authoritative, permissive, uninvolved, and then just some of my thoughts on that. So if you watched, thanks for watching, and we're going to record more of these. This was session 1, and so we're going to be recording more of these. So thanks a lot and have a good day.